My 22M boyfriend gave me 25M, three outrageous ultimatums: move in together, drive him 2 hours daily, and an open relationship. After 8 months of trying to build intimacy, he ghosted me and said, "I never enjoyed sex." Am I the problem, or is he? I am having a really difficult time processing everything that has occurred in my relationship. I want to be fair and objective, but it is difficult to see things clearly when you are involved. I am 25 years old and my boyfriend is 22 years old, and we have been together for 8 months. We have been in a long-distance relationship the entire time, approximately 2.5 hours apart. I am in medical school, and he has been working hard to gain admission to graduate school. Overall, our relationship has included many positive moments. When we are together in person, things are generally great. I would say that around 95% of those days have been enjoyable. I'm usually a go-with-the-flow type of person, but I have been actively trying to express my feelings more, which is something I did not do in my previous relationships. As our relationship became more serious, I wanted to establish a partnership with better communication and emotional honesty. Month-by-month breakdowns. Month 1. I hosted a house party and introduced him to my friends. Everything went smoothly and everyone got along well. Later that night, he consumed too much alcohol and lost consciousness. I took care of him and did not create a fuss about it. It felt like one of those situations that just happens sometimes when people are drinking. We officially started dating after this. Month 2. We attended a music festival together with some of my friends. Once again, we enjoyed ourselves, but he ended up blacking out again, and I had to take him home early, which meant we missed the after party. I did not shame him or become angry, but I began to worry about his drinking patterns. Around this time, we also had our first significant conversation about sexual boundaries. He is a bottom and expressed that he does not like using condoms. I informed him that I was not comfortable engaging in unprotected sex unless we were both tested, especially since he mentioned that he had not used condoms in past hookups. It took several months, along with some emotional discussions, before he finally got tested. I believed it was a reasonable and healthy boundary to establish, and tried to handle it in a calm and non-judgmental manner. Month 5. Things had been progressing smoothly. We began to open up more about our sexual experiences. I shared that I am a bit kinkier and enjoy exploring more, whereas he tends to prefer more straightforward sex as a bottom. I attempted to take the dominant role, but I struggled with nerves and self-consciousness. Despite that, I was dedicated to making it work and wanted to meet his needs. We explored some of the kinks I enjoyed, but I also felt pressured to focus exclusively on what he liked, and I did not feel that he was as open to compromise or exploration. Month 6. This is when things began to change. I started to notice that he was becoming distant. I brought up my desire for more communication during the week, such as increased texting or calling to stay connected. When we FaceTimed to discuss it, he became quite defensive. I felt that I was merely expressing a desire for closeness, but he reacted as if I were accusing or attacking him. I ended up apologizing to maintain peace. We did end up texting more afterward, so I regarded that as a small victory, even though the conversation was difficult. He accompanied me to my medical school prom, but once again he drank too much and lost consciousness. That night was different. It became a breaking point. The following day he opened up and told me that he had been drinking heavily, including drinking and driving with open containers. That frightened me. I told him how proud I was that he confided in me, and I supported him completely. I also encouraged him to seek local resources since I was not physically available to help every day. Around this time, I was trying harder to meet his sexual needs, but he grew cold and distant. He would say he did not feel clean, did not want to engage in sexual activities, or was not in the mood. That was okay, and I did not pressure him, but it was challenging to feel as though I wasn't even given the opportunity to improve. I even stopped watching pornography and masturbating because I believed it was affecting my performance and intimacy with him. I genuinely wanted to support him. However, even when I felt confident and prepared, he was not interested. We ended up engaging in activities focused on my pleasure, but I did not want to push him beyond his comfort level. Month 8, where it all fell apart. We had planned for him to move in with me during the summer before he began graduate school. He stated that he wanted to work full-time 40 hours at Starbucks, commute 2 hours daily, and do an unpaid apprenticeship. I expressed that I was sad, not angry, because I had envisioned this summer as a time to really connect both emotionally and sexually. During the summer, most medical students leave town, so I would be alone, and I was truly looking forward to sharing time with him, cooking meals, hiking, and simply being close. I was hoping for more balance, perhaps 30 to 40 hours of work to create space for us. Instead of engaging in a conversation, he responded with hostility. He accused me of being controlling and said that he would be broke, claimed he was not going to be my servant, and more. I was taken aback. My intention was to share my feelings, not issue demands. I had already offered to cover rent and utilities and told him I could assist with food or other expenses if needed. I was not trying to control him. I was trying to support him and create space for our relationship. I later suggested an alternative over text, staying at my mother's house in Massachusetts. It is spacious, quiet, and close to my friends and family, and he would have better job opportunities there. It had worked really well for my brother and his girlfriend when they lived there. I believed it could resolve many of the logistical issues and bring us closer together. Following this suggestion, he ghosted me for 5 days. No reply, no response, nothing. Even after I suggested FaceTiming to discuss it the next day. If he had texted me saying he needed space, I would have completely respected that, but ghosting me for 5 days seems to demonstrate a complete lack of respect in an 8-month relationship. The fallout. Out of nowhere, he sent me a blank Snapchat. I responded, "Now you snap me after ignoring me for days." He replied that he had been waiting for me to send something sensible. He then informed me that he had never enjoyed sex in the relationship and accused me of being selfish. He claimed that he never felt even a little bit pleased. I was blindsided. We had so few opportunities to be intimate due to the distance, and every time I asked him afterward if he felt good, he said yes. He even reached orgasm during those instances. I thought we were gradually building toward more intimacy rather than deteriorating. I texted an apology and shared that pornography had been an issue for me in the past and that I was working hard to change. I simply wanted him to know that I was trying and that I cared. The final FaceTime. I opened up about everything, explaining how I was managing my own issues, particularly the problem with pornography, which he had never known about, and striving to be a better partner. I told him how hurtful the ghosting had been and that I only wanted to have a mature discussion about our future. He told me that I had 8 months to inform him about my pornography issue, but I did not think that was fair because he had never disclosed his alcohol problem to me until it became serious. He presented me with 3 ultimatums. 1. He must move in with me in my state, or the relationship cannot continue. 2. I must drive him to and from work every day, 2 hours total for dropping him off and an additional 2 hours to pick him up to bond. 3. Once he begins graduate school, he wishes to have an open relationship. I was caught off guard. I tried to explain that I had only suggested living with my mother to make things easier and to save him from a taxing commute. I did not realize that it triggered past trauma for him, living with an ex and feeling trapped. However, he never informed me of that until now. I was not attempting to force him, I merely wanted to discuss it like partners. Yet instead of bringing it up with me, he allowed resentment to build and then exploded. Reflection. He keeps a lot of feelings bottled up inside, and when I try to address something, he either shuts down or lashes out. I feel like I am constantly apologizing, even when I approach situations gently or with good intentions. He claims that I argue and do not satisfy him sexually, but he rarely offers me direct feedback or helps me understand how to grow together. How am I supposed to improve things if he refuses to communicate with me about what is troubling him? He compared our Apex Legends gaming arguments to relationship problems. I understand that I can become intense when we play competitive games. I am very competitive, and it is my greatest flaw, but he always insists on playing ranked matches at a very high level, similar to the top 5 to 10% of players, instead of a game like Minecraft. I do not think it is fair to equate my criticisms while trying to win in a video game with our relationship and how we communicate, as they are vastly different. Additionally, when I realized he was upset one time while we were playing, I stopped the game, apologized, and attempted to discuss it. He refused to engage and instead harbored resentment and went straight to bed. If he shuts down whenever he is offended or his feelings are hurt, how can I work to resolve the issue? I would take his feelings seriously, but he becomes quiet and withdraws, and when I voice my concerns, he reacts as though I am attacking him personally while I am trying to foster teamwork. He tends to keep his problems to himself, which somehow feels like my fault, even when I console him. It seems that I am always the villain, even when I try to communicate in a mature manner and compromise. He shared my messages with his closest friends who claimed that I was controlling. However, he did not approach me to discuss it. That feels unfair because it is our relationship, not about my friends or his friends. One of my friends also supported me, but obviously that has little weight because we are meant to be a team to resolve these issues, not to ghost each other or refer to friends. His friend likely does not know about the ultimatums he imposed on me, so I believe that would alter her perspective on who is being controlling because I would never do that to him, even regarding the alcohol issue, unless it became severely problematic. I have made significant efforts to make this work emotionally, sexually, and logistically. I have acknowledged my flaws and mistakes. However, I do not feel that I am receiving the same in return. Additional concern: drinking again. One thing that truly unsettled me was that during this conversation, he mentioned that he was planning to start drinking again and insisted that he never had a problem to begin with. This was perplexing because he was the one who initially told me that he was drinking daily, sometimes driving with open containers, and that it was becoming an issue. I had encouraged him and praised his decision to distance himself from that lifestyle. Now he seemed to backtrack and implied that I was overreacting. I stated that I was not attempting to control him, but I was concerned because he had admitted it was a problem. He dismissed my concerns and appeared irritated that I even mentioned it, even though he was the one who broke down in tears after blacking out at the prom. Now I feel stuck. Am I overthinking all of this? Was I too controlling even though my intentions were good? Is his communication style simply different, or is it manipulative? I do not feel that we are functioning as a team. I want accountability from both sides and healthy, open communication. Feelings and issues are not black and white, but rather a gray area that can improve with effort from both sides. However, I am uncertain if that is even possible in this relationship anymore. Please, I just need an outside perspective. Summary: I, 25 years old, have been in a long-distance relationship with my boyfriend, 22 years old, for 8 months. Things were wonderful in person, but communication issues, mismatched sexual needs, and his drinking started to create tension. I supported him through his alcohol struggles and made every effort to meet him halfway emotionally and sexually, even revealing my own challenges such as my pornography addiction. When I expressed a desire for more quality time this summer, he labeled me as controlling and ghosted me for 5 days. He later claimed he never enjoyed sex with me, accused me of selfishness, and issued 3 ultimatums to continue our relationship: to move in with me, to drive him 2 hours daily to work, and to agree to an open relationship. He is now drinking again and insists that it was never a problem, despite previously admitting it was. I feel like I have consistently tried to communicate and improve while he either shuts down or ghosts me and harbors resentment. I am left questioning whether I am the issue, if his behavior is manipulative, or if we are simply incompatible. I need assistance in determining whether I am missing something or experiencing gaslighting. Story 2. I traded my quiet, focused world for her love, only to become the target of her friend's jealousy. After exposing my feelings, she turned against me, sparking relentless bullying. "Maybe you're the problem," said the counselor. I dropped out and now ask, how do you fight for someone who won't fight for you? Hey, just a heads up, this might be a long message. I hope it is acceptable, but I have been holding this in for such a long time and it has been weighing on me. I just need to let it out. I also apologize if there are any grammatical errors. English is not my first language and I am trying my best. How far can you go for someone? Before I met her, I was the type of guy who only cared about academics and business because life forced me to be that way. I did not have much time for anything else. Parties, romance, going out with friends, that was never part of my plan. I was just your typical guy in the classroom, quiet, preferring to be alone and unable to care less about the gossip. What mattered to me was only academics and getting home to work on my business. That was it. I only had a few interactions and a few friends I could call upon whom I could talk to about personal life because I did not really like to share things. Sometimes my classmates would talk about adulting topics and try to learn about my hobbies, interests, or what kind of life I was living, and honestly, I had no idea what to say or how to respond effectively to those kinds of inquiries. My upbringing was not much different from anyone else's. But as a person, I guess that is where things were a bit different. I never really enjoyed being around a lot of people, so I did not make many friends growing up. However, when I did make friends, I kept them close and checked in on them because I knew how it felt, and it can be sad sometimes, even for an introvert. I was not exactly the best when it came to socializing, awkward, quiet, and unsure how to connect with people beyond surface-level conversations. But when it came to academics and business, that was where I felt confident. I actually started my own venture back in 7th grade and was already making a decent amount, around 50,000 to 60,000 monthly, which is decent money to live a comfortable life here in my country. It was not just a hobby, it became part of how I survived, how I coped, and how I felt I had control over something in my life. Of course, for all those years, I did not really care about money for myself. All I wanted was to live comfortably. That is why I let my parents handle things financially at home while I gave them most of what I earned. My father barely made enough to support the 4 of us, and my parents were drowning in debt. So for me, it was simple. If I could help, I would. I felt like I needed to repay them somehow. They were always supportive of the things I was interested in, even if they did not fully understand them. They never made me feel like I was alone in chasing what I wanted. That kind of love my parents gave me shaped the man I am today. It was not perfect, but it was enough to make me the person I am today. I never got into vices, no parties or wild nights. I had my own world and stayed there. I preferred deep conversations over small talk and my hobbies. They might seem pretty weird to most people, but I loved collecting toys, tinkering with technology, and geeking out over random things that made me feel alive. Fast forward to when everything shifted. I met her during my second year of college. She is female, 19 years old, and I am male, 20 years old. When she entered my life, I did not know what I was feeling. I did not even recognize it as love. But there was something different, something unfamiliar, an emotion I had never felt before. It was not loud, it was not overwhelming, but it was there, quietly making space in my heart. And for someone like me, who has always been focused, reserved, and emotionally guarded, that feeling was both terrifying and beautiful. But this time my heart triumphed over my mind. Despite all the hesitations and the what-if swirling through my head, I decided to send her a message because it became too unbearable. It was a simple message, nothing out of the ordinary, just a casual hi, but somehow that small act felt like a significant leap. I did not know what would happen next. All I knew was that I wanted to know her more, and for once I was willing to step out of my comfort zone just to make that happen. Coincidentally, she was part of my group for an activity, so I had the perfect excuse to reach out as well. Deep down, I knew it was not just about the task I was about to give her. I genuinely wanted to talk to her. I assigned her the task she needed to do for a group activity, helped her with it, and when it was finished, I also asked if she could help me with mine in return. The truth is, I could have easily completed it all on my own, but I did not want to end it there. I wanted to prolong the interaction a little longer, to keep the conversation flowing, to have a reason to stay connected. For the record, she is just like me, an academic achiever, so it was not really a surprise nor a question as to why I started falling for her. My intuition about her was not wrong. She possessed that rare combination of quiet strength, intellect, and grace. She was not trying to impress anyone, she was simply herself, and somehow that was enough. She embodied the qualities I imagined in a woman: reserved, focused, someone with depth who could challenge me in deep conversations. But there was something more, something I could not explain. She was unlike anyone I had ever known. Throughout those months, we slowly built a strong and steady foundation. We got to know each other deeply, not just through sweet words, but also through presence, patience, and more. Eventually, we both decided to try entering into a romantic relationship. However, she told me up front that we could not be official for 2 years, despite most of her family members being supportive of me, and honestly, that was fine with me. I never cared much about labels anyway. What truly mattered was the way we cared for each other, and for me, that was more than enough. My trust in her was 100%, because after all, you should not be in a relationship if all you ever do is doubt your partner. That is not love. That is mere manipulation or a sense of accomplishment. She was not a trophy for me or anything of the sort. I was not just someone to her, I was her best friend, and she meant everything to me. It was all perfect. We would study together, play games, and we would create a software application consisting of facts about ourselves. The more we learned about each other, the more rewarding the experience became. My way of courting her was not typical, no flowers or grand gestures. I expressed my feelings through letters and something a bit more. I designed a custom software game just for her. In the game, she needed to navigate through it and complete it, and at the end, just like those you see in TikTok videos, a question would pop up asking, "Is it okay if I court you?" If she answered yes or no, her response would automatically be sent to me. It was cheesy and nerdy, but it was entirely from the heart. That game and those letters were all part of how I tried to convey that I was serious about her. I went all in for her, stepping out of my comfort zone, all because I loved her. With her, my life began to improve. I started saving and planning for the future in all aspects. I became better each day. Fast forward to about 6 months later, when things began to go downhill. It started with a simple argument between us, nothing explosive. But somehow her friends, who were also my classmates, escalated it into something larger than it was. I was never really close with her group, but I introduced her to mine and she was welcomed with open arms. The same could not be said for her friends' attitude towards me. There was always tension, a quiet dislike rooted either in jealousy or maybe just misplaced interest. The argument began when I told her that she needed to learn how to say no. People constantly asked things of her: favors, notes, group work, and she could not bring herself to decline even if it meant exhausting herself. I hated seeing her like that. She complained to me about how tired she was and how overwhelming it all felt. So sometimes I helped her finish those tasks she received from her friends, but I knew it was unhealthy. I also encouraged her to stop sharing her drinks with people, out of concern for her health. Initially, I did not view it as a problem, but I became jealous because there was almost no distinction between her friends and me. When I tried to spend quality time with her, just the two of us, her friends always came first, and almost every time our plans would end up getting canceled or the atmosphere would change and not remain the same as I wanted it to be. Anyway, these were the same people who would sit next to her during exams just to copy answers, something I never did because I respected her effort and time. It hurt my ego because I have standards, and copying someone else's work or answers is incredibly shameful for me. After a while, I stopped interacting with her friends, 7 people, after seeing conversations where they were just waiting for us to break up and talking behind my back despite all I had done for them. They were pushing for another guy who has a crush on her. These were people to whom I provided snacks, treats, and printed handouts almost every day, helping without asking for anything in return. But instead of recognizing my kindness, they twisted it. I ceased all forms of interaction after that. To them, I was just like a bank, it seemed. I was never treated this way during my high school years, this was only in college. I opened up to her in full paragraphs, trying to express how I felt, what I was observing, and how I thought her friends were manipulating her. I just wanted her to be treated the way she deserved, with genuine friendship, not out of convenience. Then she herself, female, 19 years old, showed those messages to her friend group. The exact words I wrote to her meant exclusively for her. After that, everything spiraled. She admitted she was scared of losing her friends and that she knew she could easily be manipulated. But even then, her anger towards me grew. She would not talk to me and completely shut me out. I tried to fix things, I gave her space, maintained my distance, and told her I would be here when she was ready to talk. During this time, I still sent her letters and emails just to show that I cared and never stopped thinking about her. After she leaked the conversation, everything turned into a nightmare. For the next 3 months, I was verbally harassed and bullied. It did not matter which room, subject, or laboratory I was in, they would whisper, laugh, make comments, and mock me as if I were a joke. It slowly destroyed me mentally. I started taking absences because I could not bear being in that environment anymore. But even when I was not around, they did not stop. They would still gather and talk about me. And the worst part, the very person I trusted the most, my best friend, female, 19 years old, joined them. She kept leaking the new messages I sent privately, adding fuel to the fire. I would not even know about it until a day later when someone who had a friend in that group would inform me what was happening. That person confided in my friend, expressing how terrible they felt that those private messages should have remained between just the two of us. But instead, they became ammunition for public ridicule. I was bullied for 3 months straight, and I was never the same again. I became traumatized, I felt betrayed, I felt exposed. My best friend, someone for whom I stood up, someone I believed had my back, took part in tearing me down, perhaps to gain their approval, perhaps to elevate herself. I tried to fight back in the right way. I reported everything to the school, shared the emotional trauma I was enduring, and begged them to take action. But nothing was done. Instead, I was the one called to the office, and what the counselor said broke me. If they are ganging up on you, maybe it is because you are the problem. That moment crushed me. The institution, the person I loved most and envisioned my life with, after all that I had given, the effort, the love, the patience, I became a villain in a story I never wished to be part of. Eventually, I dropped out of college. The last straw was when they embarrassed me in front of 50 people during a physical education practice. I cried so much on my way home because the only person I trusted and loved took part in it. That broke me. 2 months later, I decided to change, not to move on, but to redirect the pain. I took a different path, focused on my real goals, aimed to earn a 6-figure monthly income, dove deeper into my hobbies, and worked hard to improve my physical appearance. But the truth, all of it was still for her. And somehow, by luck or a twist of fate, I made it happen, except for getting physically better. I kept thinking maybe someday she would look back and regret the choices she made. Not because I want her to hurt, but because I hope she realizes what we had was special. Anyway, with each passing month, I still send her emails, even about my smallest achievements, and ask her about her life in school and outside, though I never receive any response. Just 2 days ago, I sent her some gifts through a friend I trusted. But I was told she declined them all because her friends were advising her not to accept anything from me. They were urging her on, so I traveled back 4 times and simply gave those gifts away. I do not really know if I should keep holding on. I envisioned a life with her, one where we supported each other, grew together, and kept every promise we made. And I meant every word I ever told her. I never make promises I do not intend to keep. I still love her, and perhaps a part of me always will. But how do you keep fighting for someone who no longer stands beside you? It hurts me to see it end like this. I still wish I could shield her from all the things she does not see. But I am starting to realize that I cannot keep protecting someone who will not let me in, who listens more to voices that bring her down than to the one who only ever wanted to lift her up. If you have any thoughts or advice, I would genuinely appreciate it, everyone. Thank you for reading. Story 3. Groomed by Adrian, a YouTuber's brother. At 16, I was oblivious when he said, "You're so mature for your age." At 23, I realized the depth of my deception and damage. After revealing his actions on Twitter, I can finally breathe. How do I break free from his shadow? I will not share the name of the YouTuber in this post to at least maintain some animosity. However, I will reveal the groomer's name. His name is Adrian. I have already discussed him on Twitter after someone messaged me on Discord asking about him. They informed me that some allegations arose that he had groomed another girl. They inquired if I knew who the Discord user he allegedly groomed was, and I confirmed that I did because I spoke with her when I first met Adrian. They were already friends and engaged in consistent conversations before I met him. Therefore, I genuinely believe her, because if he was capable of doing it to me, then he is certainly capable of doing it to her. Thanks to that Discord direct message, I went to Twitter and communicated with a former administrator who helped manage the server, and I provided him with all the evidence I had against Adrian. He made a Twitter post which I retweeted, and I wrote several tweets about it. I am discussing it here because I ultimately deleted those tweets after my real-life friends began following my Twitter account. I could not bear the thought of them discovering that I was groomed, especially during high school when I met them. This feels incredibly relieving to type out. It is very therapeutic. Anyway, the story of my grooming began in the summer of 2018. I was about to turn 16 when I first interacted with him. Keep in mind that he is 6 years older than I am, making him 22 at the time. I was quite active on the YouTuber's Discord server, and Adrian was an administrator. He would pull me into calls that were intended for individuals with a higher rank based on experience points earned from sending messages. He ultimately gave me a higher rank instead of going through the trouble of the process. We started communicating frequently. It began with conversations in a group chat we created with other Discord friends, and we would play Roblox together. After a while, when I was in school, we would message each other consistently through Snapchat. I found myself growing increasingly dependent on his attention. I also felt jealous when my other friends spoke to him alone, and long story short, I developed a significant crush on him. The issue was that I would often forget his age because he acted just like us. All the people in our Discord group were girls between 1 to 3 years younger than I was. During my junior year and the summer following it, our friendship intensified. By the time I entered my senior year, he began to flirt with me. I was still 16 when I started. He would flirt with me consistently, so naturally I was head over heels for him. He would also tell me the classic line, "You are so mature for your age," which was nonsense. In hindsight, I was never mature at that age, it was so obvious. In October, he finally confessed his feelings for me. By that time, I was 17 for 2 months, and he told me he confessed his feelings because he couldn't wait until I was 18. He simply had to tell me. We entered into an online relationship, a very cringeworthy term, but oh well, for a week. I remember vividly this 23-year-old man asking me, "Are you today's date because you are a 10 out of 10?" Ultimately, it only lasted a week because our dynamic did not change. We were simply more open about flirting. After that, it returned to the usual interactions, albeit with less flirting until December of that year, 2019, when he became intoxicated and called me to declare his love for me, stating that he had not stopped thinking about me. I always disliked it when he became tipsy or drunk because he would call me and it made me uncomfortable. We entered into an online relationship again, I believe from late December to around January 7th. I know the precise date because I was on a family trip and my mother discovered him. However, I lied to her, claiming he was a guy from my high school. He panicked understandably as he was committing a crime and told me we could not date anymore. Some time passed and then COVID-19 struck. He enjoyed going to clubs frequently, so with everything shutting down due to COVID-19, he was stuck at home, meaning he essentially had no one to talk to. Therefore, he asked me if we could date again. As the oblivious and infatuated girl I was, I said yes. This is where the grooming escalated significantly. I do not recall the exact month when the intense events occurred because my memory from that time has become a bit hazy. I somewhat blocked it out. But I know we began to engage in more sexual activities. It became a daily occurrence for him to expose himself to me, and I, as an underage person, would reciprocate. I remember a detail about his body that no one could tell me was fake. This man has a birthmark located at the base of his penis on the underside. I cannot recall which side because I am unsure if the camera flips the image or not. I know it was on the right side of my screen. Anyway, he started attempting to isolate me, and my relationship with my parents significantly suffered. I wanted to go to college desperately and leave, and my parents were on the verge of kicking me out. Since I was still a child, they would take my phone away whenever I misbehaved, which was frequent during this time, and Adrian would become angry with me, blaming me for not being able to communicate with him. He would say things like, "I cannot continue like this. I cannot have a girlfriend who cannot talk to me," and so forth. As a result, I ended up resenting my parents somewhat. Anyway, I reached college and things got interesting here. I was still 17 when I began college, having turned 18 a week after starting. I am not joking when I say this. He literally broke up with me and started ignoring me because I was in college. He claimed, "You have more important things to do and I cannot have one-on-one conversations with you anymore." This made sense because I had a roommate, but isn't that a bit suspicious? He also visited me during Labor Day weekend, about 2 weeks after I turned 18, and he attempted to have sex with me, but I was on my period, so I refused. I was also seeing another guy at this point. While I was not a virgin or anything, I never disclosed that to Adrian, who was very insistent that I engage in sexual activities with him. So I performed oral sex on him, and he was very pleased that he was my first, he was not. Subsequently, he left, and we barely communicated until late September or early October when he asked if I wanted to go to Las Vegas with him. By this time, I was growing more interested in the guy I was seeing and informed him of that. Adrian told me that he was also seeing someone, so what was the problem? They did not have to know. This realization led me to understand that he did not care about me. I was curious, so I accepted the invitation, and he specifically asked me for dates when I would be off my period. At this point, I was certain he was only interested in me for sex. I told him I did not know, and he became annoyed, demanding that I inform him as soon as possible. Later, I developed a urinary tract infection, which disrupted my cycle even more, and he became extremely angry, accusing me of having a sexually transmitted disease and being foolish. After that, I completely stopped communicating with him. When I finished my first semester, he messaged me asking if I wanted to talk and catch up. I declined, telling him I was busy, and I never spoke to him again. I am currently 23 years old, and I assure you all that I could never view a 16 or 17-year-old in a romantic or sexual manner. He is a disgusting individual, and I sincerely hope he is no longer involved in that YouTuber's career.